Yes, a peer counselor is a young person, just like you, who wants to help. Because you know what it feels like to have problems in school or with your parents or when you need a friend. If you decide to become a peer counselor, you will be involved in training for approximately 10 to 14 weeks.
The training will give you an opportunity to learn new skills, such as how to establish trust and how to really listen, how to build a helping relationship, and what are your values.
Training leaders will help you develop skills in active listening and relationship building.
You will learn more about yourself, and you will learn more about others as well.
The training will give you an opportunity to share your feelings about a variety of subjects and give you the opportunity to gain the support of your fellow peer counselors.
You will learn to form an open and trusting relationship with a peer counselee.
You will make new friends, and you will develop new ideas.
Once the training is over, you will be matched with a peer counselee. Your first meeting may be an informal one.
There are many tasks you can be involved in, including one-to-one weekly counseling.
In your counseling relationship, you will share, you will grow, and you will learn.
You will learn to be very helpful and how to be a real friend.
You will have fun and be a part of a meaningful experience.
When your counselee is lonely or experiencing a crisis, you can reach out. You can express support and concern for your counselee.
And you can discover feeling really good about using yourself to help others.
You've seen adults talking about peer counseling, and you've seen peer counselors in training and in action. But we thought that you would like to hear from the peer counselors themselves. And so we would like to ask them, what is peer counseling?
And I'd like your personal opinion of this. What is your definition of peer counseling?
The definition of peer counseling is helping one another and getting people to respond to you, and that's a great thing if you can get someone to respond to you from helping them. And
peer counseling is but sitting there and listening to somebody when they have a problem, and not just listening but understanding their problem, and if you can, try to advise them, but not in the beginning stages from what I've learned. Also, peer counseling is trying to help your friends if they're with any problems or with peer pressure.
Kids, understanding the techniques of helping other kids solve their own problems.
Peer counseling. It's being there to listen to somebody who has a problem, showing them that you can help them, that they have it in themselves to find their own solutions. It's not so much advising them and telling them what to do, but it's letting them know that they can find out themselves. So that's what peer counseling is.
The definition of peer counseling is a person who will listen attentively and just be there and to help someone out, just to help a friend out.
Okay, peer counseling to me is like when your friends is helping, each other. They're helping each other to overcome their problems. And sometimes it's better to talk to a friend who understands you than a friend who, than someone who doesn't. And peer counseling is like that. It helps youngsters to, overcome their problems.
The definition of peer counseling?
In your own words.
I guess that it would be peers trying to be human beings and helping their peers in any way that they can. And it's been teaching about active listening, but there are all kinds of role modeling and values giving and advice giving and having fun and cutting up, and all of those I think are part of peer counseling too. And I guess that what I would hope that peer counseling, my definition of peer counseling, is some positive feelings for both the counselor and the counselee.
In this section, some peer counselors are going to talk about the various ways they have used their training. As peer counseling training progresses, the peer counselors begin to wonder more and more what kind of tasks that they're going to have in peer counseling. And they generally think of one-to-one counseling as the one way that they will be working. But actually there are a number of different tasks and assignments that they can choose from. And these can range from orienting a new student to running a group of elementary students to working as an assistant leader in creative dramatics. Some high school students, some peer counselors, are going to share their thoughts and ideas with you about the experiences that they have had in their peer counseling tasks.
Maybe we can start with Rudy. Rudy, just what is your task?
Well, in peer counseling, I have a group of 6 guys from 7th grade, and I work with Carrie, a professional social worker, and we meet once a week, and all the guys in my group are disorderly problems.
Attention, please.
They're wild.
Please.
How did you go about putting the group together, and what was your purpose?
Well, first we went to the girl's teacher, and she gave us recommendations. She told us who would be best for the group, and then we set up a time, and we decided that it would be best to have it during their art period, because then they could make up the things that they did easier. And we decided on once a week until the end of the year. And then the first day we brought the girls over and told them where the room was, and so they knew where that was. And we have to come and get them also because they're an upper grade center. And so that's what we do. That's how we got it started. And the purpose of the group is we discuss problems and we discuss things that interest them, and then it gets us started, and we get into different problems that they have, and we try to work them out, and we try to get the girls to understand each other and try to help out each other and help them understand themselves also. And we try to build up trust, and we just do things like that.
How did the girls react? Can you just give us a little bit about what they were like when they first came into the group?
Well, the first couple meetings they were pretty quiet, and they were kind of afraid to talk, and they didn't trust us very much. And they asked why they were here. That's the main thing they did the first couple meetings. They always asked us why they were there. And so we said, well, why do you think you're here? And so they started saying, well, is it because we fight and we're rowdy and we start trouble? And we said, well, do you think that's why? Do you do that? And they said, no, we're just wondering. That's why. So that was a good starter, a good thing to start with. And we got into things like that. But, yeah.
Isabel, you've been doing one-to-one counseling as well as Michelle, and you have found that trust has built up with your counselee.
Maybe you want to share some of that with us.
What I did was I made her feel that everything that she told me was kept inside myself, that I wouldn't go and tell everyone else, like establishing that it's confidential between us two. And for her to, I never pressured her to say anything to me. I supported her answers towards me. I never looked down at her for anything. And I just supported her and just, you know.
How are they able to share with you if you have different values?
Well, I think first, a lot of people, I think, she probably felt that I was going to look down at her values. I never looked down at her values because that would sort of make her uneasy and would just make her think, oh, well, she's too good for me. I have to look up to her and I have to respond to her the way she expects me to. So I'd be as equal as her. But I never did that. If she would say something to me, I wouldn't, if she'd said something wrong, I would just say, well, do you think that's right? Make her respond to her own wrong answers, like make her realize what she's doing wrong.
In other words, you try to relate that back to her and see how something would either be helpful to her or harmful to her, rather than telling her that something is right or wrong.
And you don't want to make her feel like she can't tell you, like if she's doing something illegal or something, that she knows she's not supposed to do, but she does it anyways with her friends or something. You don't want to make her feel uncomfortable like she can't tell you, so you want to keep your trust. You don't want to say, oh, I don't believe you did that, you want to make her feel like she can tell you, but you don't want her to think that you think it's okay. So you kind of go, well, how do you feel about that? How does it make you feel when you're doing that, when you know that, that might not be the best thing to do, or something?
Yeah, I think values are very important. I know we have another group where we're going to talk about, how important values are, and I think that's one of the things you two have been alluding to, that if you don't have a sense of what your values are and how they may be different from your clients, then that can, I guess, be sort of interference between your relationship.
Because some of the people that we counsel think we're goody two-shoes, and they try to act like they're goody two-shoes.
I like meeting, with my counselee, but I even like more meeting with my counselor because every other week or whenever we meet, I get to share, what's inside of me and how my meetings went with my counselee, and just kind of let out things that maybe I've been keeping inside, maybe I haven't told other people, just kind of a private session with my own counselor. And it kind of lets me know where I am and kind of makes me feel like I feel more comfortable meeting next time with my counselee. And sometimes we talk about what my counselor tells me, and maybe if I don't understand things, then we kind of talk about the underlying surface of what my counselor really was saying, things that I don't know yet because I've just started, peer counseling, and I really enjoy, I think supervising, meeting with your supervisors, something really important, a really important part of peer counseling. For me, it is.
It helps you not stick your foot in your mouth.
Okay, I went over to Bateman, and I got involved in the creative arts program, and it mostly consists of kids acting on stage and doing different drama and stuff. And we sit around and we play, and the kids really open up to me. Like one guy, Jeff, he was talking to me about high school, and I was surprised to see him opening up to me because I didn't think the kids liked me that well, but I was wrong.
How do you help them? How do you change them in any way for the better?
It almost sounds like that's less threatening, because if they had to sit in a group and talk like we're doing now, they may not open up as much as when they're acting out somebody who may really be themselves. Right? It sounds like a real neat way of working with people.
But how do you deal with them? What do you do?
Well, mostly when I go there, let's see, the kids, they kind of like talk to me. They miss me when I don't come over there. But when I come over there, the kids, like, they want to be around us. They feel like they're doing something. So I think it's great that they open up to us like they do. They really do.
I'm wondering what the experience has been for each of you personally, what it has meant to you.
Well, personally, I thought peer counseling was very good for me because in my discussions with my counselor, I helped to realize some of the things. I helped to know myself more. And I realized some things of myself that I didn't know before. And I feel better about myself.
Peer counseling has helped me learn to open up to other people, and like in my meetings, you just share a lot of stuff with your counselee. And it's in our meetings with our groups, I learned to share things, that have been bothering me, or share my opinions on stuff, and it's really helped me to open up.
For myself, I think peer counseling helped me find out things about myself that I never knew, helped me open up and, be how I really am. And it made me feel a lot better about myself and what I was doing.
Like myself, this counseling has helped me with my own problems too, because when I'm with the girls and I say, well, what would you do if this, or how do you feel about that? Now I can ask myself the same questions when I have a problem and things like that. It helps me a lot, my own problems.
Counseling helps me in that I always, I like to help people, and I like to help them if they have problems and stuff. I'll listen to them and I'll try to help them. And peer counseling gives me a whole different way of how to do that, how to help people, even when I'm not in school, like during the summer if I see somebody, it gives me a different way of how to ask somebody questions and knowing an approach on how to, get an answer from them and try to help them. So it's helped, this training's helped me a lot in that sense.
Working in creative arts and in peer counseling have gave me the confidence I need to help counsel another person on my own. And it's really been a great experience. And I might want to go into social work one day. And so I think this has been the perfect experience.
And I think everyone around the world should try peer counseling.
This session will focus on listening. On first glance, it would seem that listening would be a rather easy skill to develop, but in fact, for peer counselors, listening is probably the most important and perhaps the most difficult skill that one can get a hold of. There are lots of ways one does counseling, but many of those ways do not involve listening. They involve giving advice, they involve all kinds of things that masquerade as kind of listening skills. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about two things. First, we're going to talk about the ways that we avoid listening, that we do counseling without actually hearing what the problem is in the first place. We're going to talk about 10 different ways to avoid listening. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about what one does in order to listen. And we're going to show some examples of both of these. The first three ways to avoid listening are often ways that parents use when dealing with their children. Their children come to them and they may give an order or command, something for the child to do to solve the problem. If the child still persists, they may issue a warning or a threat. And as the child grows up, perhaps preach or moralize and giving them some values to guide them. These are fine in their place. However, when one is talking to one's friend or to one's counselee, they really are more the views of the counselor as opposed to the counselee. They don't involve any listening at all, or at least they only involve listening to a couple of quick things. Number 4 is probably the one that gives people the most difficulty. Advice in itself is really an okay thing. It's not bad to give advice. In fact, most of us need advice at some time in our life. But often when a counselee comes for some counseling, they really know what the alternatives are to some degree. They also know what people have told them to do about them. What they're really looking for is an answer within themselves. And the way to get an answer within themselves is not to get advice. They've had advice. What they need is for someone to draw that advice out from the inside. Giving advice, then, doesn't help that process. Logical persuasion is always good. We like to persuade each other of things. And to some extent, persuasion happens in any counseling session. But for the counselor to persuade using his logic, his or her logic, is not what the counselee needs. Everyone likes to be praised, and everyone likes to be agreed with. But the reason that a counselee comes to a counselor is not necessarily to receive praise or agreement. It's a problem. And to face the fact that it's a problem is the first step on doing a good job of being a peer counselor. The counselee came with a problem. Give him that problem. Let him have that problem. You don't have to necessarily agree or praise the person. On the other hand, number 7, you also don't need to criticize. The fact is it's the problem, and you can't criticize a person for having a problem. However, people often do criticize. The issue in that instance is that most counselees have criticized themselves far more intensively than you as a counselor could ever criticize them. So criticism is worse than kind of difficult. It's really kind of irrelevant. Number 8 is analyzing and diagnosing. Since you're all counselors, you all know how to analyze. Everybody wants to be Freud. But in fact, most people can do without amateur analysis. And they can also do without analysis that shows only that the counselor is smarter than the counselee. Number 9, sympathy and reassurance we all need, but maybe not necessarily in a counseling session. Number 10, and probably the most important one, is asking questions. Everybody thinks that asking questions is the way to counsel. And sometimes you need information. When you need information, ask questions. When you want to draw out people, when you want people to talk to you, questions only ask what you want to know. They don't tell you what the counselor, what the counselee wants to tell you. In the next session, we'll see some examples of these various ways to avoid listening as someone presents a real problem for our consideration. In this exercise, Randy will simulate a problem. And these other students here will try to help Randy with his problem by using the 10 ways to avoid listening. They really want to help, but I think you'll probably see by watching this exercise that sometimes using these is not the best way to help someone with a problem. Randy, why don't you tell us about your problem?
Okay, I don't know if it's a problem, really. Well, but it bugs me personally. I cut a lot of classes, and I'm not sure why I do it. I think it's because I just really feel that I know enough where I don't have to go to my classes.
Well, see, what you've got to do is you've got to go to class. You've got to do your work. You have to go to class. You've got to. It's important.
Yeah, I know. But still, like, you know, on days like where it's real nice outside and the weather, the sun's out and the weather's really nice and I'd like to go to the beach and stuff, I don't feel like going to school. It's so easy just to blow the day, you know. I'm so tempted. That's my whole thing.
But you should go to class, otherwise you're going to end up some bum walking around the street without a high school education, or else you're going to be a poor person because you're spending all your summer with nice. You're going to have to spend even nicer days in summer school, spending your money.
I feel with you. I would like to cut class too, because
yeah, you know what I'm going through.
I know you sit up in those hot classes and it's so hot and listen to those boring teachers.
I know.
I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can really do it.
I'm glad someone.
Me, really, you should just go, you know, and just think of it this way: that you'll get it over with, you'll pass, you'll get your credit, and you know, why waste your time while you have the opportunity to go to school right now?
Yeah, that's true. But still, I mean, especially now, the weather is just, it's super out, you know, and I love the sun. I worship the sun, and I just can't
I
stand
know what you mean. I mean, like that, the weather is so nice. You want to go out and with all your friends and everything, you know, and the teachers, they're so boring in there, and the weather's nice, so you want to go out. I understand that.
Yeah, you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should look at it a different way. Well, what exactly is it like in your classes? You know, what exactly makes you want to cut?
It's boring. It's hot. It's boring, and I don't get along with most of my teachers. And
well, what do your teachers do that, you know, make you so bored?
They lecture. They talk, and we take notes. It's just really dead.
Well, do you have a problem at home, maybe? Is that why you're so bored? Is there something else bothering you?
Well, you know, everyone has their problems, you know. I have a lot of problems at home, but I don't think it has anything to do with school.
Like what? What is your problem at home?
Well, you know, I have a problem with my mother. She never lets me go out enough, and she's always being real overprotective of me and things like that, you know.
Sounds like a mother. But it's a mother's job to be overprotective.
See, but I don't see how this comes in with cutting classes, you know. It's easy to cut classes. It doesn't bother me, and as long as I'm passing, I feel it's justifiable.
Because if you don't go to class, your mother's going to get on your case even more, so you best start going to class.
Maybe you should talk to somebody about it. Talk to a counselor or a teacher or your mother or a friend.
Randy, do you think anybody listened to your problem today?
Not really. They were all telling me what they thought about it, but I don't think anyone really listened. Maybe he did. He agreed with me, but
When he agreed with you, how did you feel about that?
well, he agreed with me, but he really didn't help me out. So, you know, someone else likes to cut classes with me.
So you liked him, but it didn't really help.
Yeah, right.
To try to show you the right way how to do active listening. In the last part, there was the wrong way to do active listening, where they were trying to force the person with the problem. What we're going to try to do now is we're going to try to show an example of the right way. And in that, it's where you ask the person, your client, questions so that they figure out their own problem. Not where you forcibly give them a problem and you give them suggestions all the time. So we're going to try to do our best to show you what the right way of active listening.
Hi, Karen.
How are you feeling?
Okay.
That's good. What's new?
My friends asked me to go to a camping trip with them.
Oh, really? Where are you going to go?
I don't know exactly.
The dunes or something?
Yeah, I think so. Not sure.
Who's all going?
My friends, the ones I hang around with.
What does your mother say?
I haven't asked her.
You haven't talked to her about it?
No, not really.
You sound like you're a little worried about it.
Well, I want to go, but it's the accident of parents that kill me. I don't know.
Have you talked to any of your friends about it?
Well, they all just talk about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. I want to go, but it seems like they're going to get carried away out there.
Sounds like you don't know if you really want to go that much.
Well, not really. First I have to ask my mother. She's going to say no. And then when I go to talk to my friends, they might say, oh, what a dud, They probably won't hang around with me no more.
So you're kind of worried about what they're going to be reacting to not going?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, what do you think you're going to do?
I want to go, but with my mother's permission. But if I ask, I'm too scared to ask her in a way.
Well, have you thought about talking to your father about it?
I really communicate more with my mother.
But you know she won't let you go?
Yeah, I know that for sure. And I don't really feel like going. Sometimes, it sounds great because all my friends are going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And the fun they're going to have, but in a way, I know they're going to get carried away too much.
So you're really just worried about telling them that you're not going to go?
Yeah, that's it.
Who's all going?
Well, 5 girls, 7 guys, and Vito.
And are you worried about what he's going to be thinking?
Yeah, and everybody else is.
Well, what do you think that they're going to be saying?
Well, if I tell them no, I know for sure they'll say goodbye. You know, and that's the end of our friendship.
Why?
Well, the friends I hang around with, like, you gotta be part of them in order to hang around with them. And that camping is just one of their hangouts.
It doesn't sound like you approve really much of what they're doing all the time.
Well, sometimes, but other times they're too, I don't know, they're too wild.
Do you have other friends you can hang around with?
Some, I don't know.
But it sounds like your problem is you want to say no to your friends, but you're afraid of what they're going to think about you?
Yeah, you got it.
Well, so what do you think you're going to do?
Well, I know if I tell Vito, he'll understand, because I know how he is, and he knows how my family is. And my best friend, I know, well, she'll have to listen to me, so
you feel that your friends will probably understand you, some of them will?
yeah, I guess so. Well, I've been around with them a lot. I hang around with them a lot, and I did wild things with them, so I'm sure this one's not going to hurt them.
Well, so what are you going to tell them?
I'll just say I can't go. Maybe later on or something, but not just now.
How do you feel about that?
Well, a little disappointed because I'm not going to be with my friends. But I'll survive. No big thing, really.
So you feel that they'll probably understand you now and you decide you're not going to go?
Yeah. That's it.
Sounds like you're not even worried about your mother now, because when you first came in, it was kind of like you were afraid to talk to her about it and you were going to ask her if you would go, but now you're not going to say anything to her?
No, because since I made up my mind, there's no reason to bring it up when I'm older. So, all things were good.
You don't sound too excited about this decision.
Maybe because I'm disappointed because I'm not going with Pito. So,
I'm anxious to hear what he has to say.
okay, well, next time I come, I'll let you know.
Well, good luck.
Okay. Well, I'll see you, all right?
Okay, bye, Annette.
Bye.
Okay, so now that you've all been trained, and you remember from your graduation, I'm the person that was going to be your supervisor for your first assignment, which is going to be at the one-on-one counseling. And I wanted to get together with you and talk about things that I think are very specific to this kind of an assignment, and things that I think you need to know so that we can all work together, okay? First of all, this is your group. You are the ones that have been chosen to do your first assignment on one-to-one. And the first point that I think is really important for you guys to know about is confidentiality. That we talked about this in the training, but especially now, you're going to be talking to another student. And we've talked about trust and active listening and how to get them engaged with you. And if you're not able to keep their trust and keep everything they say confidential, first, your counseling is going to go nowhere. And second of all, being in the same school, you really have a lot to lose. You don't want for your own person to get it, to have the word get around that somebody's telling you their secrets and you're, putting it on the loudspeaker in division in the morning, okay? So it's going to be necessary for you to share with me what goes on, and I would like there to be trust in this group that you can share with each other what's happening in your counseling sessions. But aside from that, it is essential that the confidentiality reach no further than that, all right? We have a big responsibility to the people that you're counseling, aside from keeping their secrets, is being there. There is nothing worse than having an appointment with somebody that you're beginning to trust and you're beginning to open yourself up to, and have that person not show up. They think you don't like them. You may have a test. You forgot all about it, or your boyfriend comes and asks you to go out for lunch, or whatever might happen, and you just sort of go, well, we can make the appointment some other time. That person is standing there wondering what's wrong with them. Wondering, maybe you didn't like their problem. Maybe you don't like them anymore. Maybe they shouldn't have told you so much. They go through an awful lot of stuff in their own mind. So it's very important that if you have an appointment, you keep that appointment.
If they stand you up, it's another story. Then you talk to me, okay? But you standing them up tends to have a lot more meaning, all right? And I'm also going to give you some crisis phone numbers here in Chicago for places that you can have as a resource and also the person you're counseling. You are not available 24 hours a day. And even though you have my phone number, I may not be home. I'm not available 24 hours every day either. Having these crisis phone numbers that are open all the time will give a person a feeling of security, that there's someplace they can call. They're not totally isolated with no idea of what to do. And so I'm going to give you a list of these numbers printed. I'm going to give you a special one for drug abuse, special one for suicide, for runaway, and then one for just general problems, because we have all these resources in Chicago. Okay? Do you have any questions? A lot of new stuff. Okay, just sort of in summary, I think what we need to remember is that you're responsible when you're a counselor to several different people. You're responsible to yourself, that you want to be sure you keep confidentiality not only for the other person but also for yourself. You're responsible to me to let me know what's going on, and you're also very responsible to the person that you're seeing in counseling. And that means not standing them up, keeping their confidentiality as something special, something that you don't just go spreading around the school, that you use your resources in terms of those phone numbers, in terms of myself, that you're responsible for what happens in your session by remembering what happens. Okay, if you come in and say, she said this to me, and I say, well, what did you say first? And you say, I don't know. We don't have a real lot to work with, okay? So sort of staying conscious of all that and all the other things that we've talked about, including using each other as support and as resources for ideas. Okay? Good luck.
I wonder if she will show up at all. I hope Karen will be pleased when I tell her about my first interview. I really shouldn't be worrying about it. What shall I say first? I don't want to make a bad impression. Well, I really can't help what she thinks. I'll just start it off good and say hello. I wonder what she will say. I think the best thing that I can do is listen to her. I just hope she doesn't talk too much or too little. Boy, am I nervous. Well, at least I have the forms to fill out, which makes it easier. I guess I'm just a little excited. It can't really hurt to be anxious, since my purpose is a good one. I'll just try and calm down and try my best. I'm sure that will help. What's taking her so long?
I hope she's not going to be weird. Why did I get myself into this? Oh well, why not?
Hi. I'm Kay. Hi, Annette. Sit down, I guess. Here, I'll take it. I'm glad you're here. I was feeling a little nervous about it myself, and so I started like, where is she? I'm glad you're here. Let me tell you what these are. These are just a couple forms that my trainer, wants me to have filled out. It helps me find out just a little bit more about you. Okay, your name is Annette. I was wondering, who do you live with at home?
My family.
Both parents?
Yeah.
And you're a freshman?
Yeah.
What kind of classes do you have? Are they good classes? How do you feel?
Same. Yes, same.
Oh, what class are you missing this period?
Choir.
Oh, do you like it? I had choir last year. I thought it was really great. Are you shy or friendly or angry or unpopular or well-liked?
Unpopular. And shy.
You know, being a freshman is hard. And I remember things from that. And I was really scared. I was afraid that I wouldn't be making, friends right away. I didn't know how to make friends. Do you have a hard time making friends too? Yeah. Well, we can sure talk about that. We can talk about a lot of things. Well, tell me about your schedule. And, are the teachers okay, or the kids?
The teachers are alright, but I don't get along with everybody, and I don't know nobody, so it's pretty much alone.
Yeah, it's tough the first year and the first couple weeks. Oh, I didn't tell you something about this. These forms are confidential. They really are. The only person that will see them is me and my trainer, the person that's helping me. I go to her, whenever I need help, so I can be a good counselor for you. That's the way it works. And so, nobody else is going to see these forms. So that's one thing you don't have to worry about. Oh, I was wondering, what kind of stuff did my trainer tell you about this?
She said that it's confidential and you only go once a week, and that you'll help solve together my problem.
Yeah, that's a lot what I've been trained to do, and so, I've got that back of my mind all the time. I was, kind of interested in wondering what made you decide to come, after you found out about what it's about. What made you want to come?
Just came. Gives me something to do. Gives me somebody to talk to.
Yeah. That's an important thing when you're starting out in a school, in a new school, a big school like this one. It helps to have people to talk to, even if it's just for a little while, once a week. Well, that's about it for the forms. Do you have a close friend, maybe from grade school or in the neighborhood or something like that? Do you have brothers and sisters at home?
5.
Oh, big family.
My father has more.
Oh. Are your brothers and sisters older than you? Do you have someone at home?
I have a smaller brother, but he acts bigger than me.
Yeah.
So I leave him alone too. Do you have a big family?
Oh, yeah. I'm at home with my mother and my older brother. My parents are divorced.
But in counseling, there are moments when, you're just sort of sitting there and nothing's happening, right? That's when your anxiety goes like this, all the way to the top. Take a deep breath, my famous suggestion, and wait a minute. And remember that sometimes it takes a moment to gather your thoughts. Sometimes there's really nothing to say, and just your presence and the fact that you're there waiting to listen will be enough. Help yourself, especially in your first interview, help yourself relax by taking a deep breath, and those silences really aren't 20 minutes. They're usually about 20 seconds, and just hang on with yourself.
When does this session finish?
Oh, I get guess it'll be in about 25 more minutes or so.
I never told anybody I slept with gum all over my hair.
Oh! I don't blame you for not telling too many people about it. You know, 25 minutes ago, when I said we have 24 more minutes, I didn't think we'd have enough to talk about for that length of time, but we did, and it was really neat. I found out a lot about you, you know, not that you slept with gum in your hair, but, you know, I learned a lot about you, and the forums helped me a lot. You want to meet same time next week?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
You know, when I first came in here, I thought you were weird.
Oh, did you? Oh, huh.
You're sort of nice.
Oh,
I like you.
I like you too. Then it'll be the same place, so it doesn't get confusing.
Okay.
Being aware of your own values is the first step in developing a peer counseling style. In addition to knowing what's important to you and what you value, it's also important to know how your values interplay and interact in the counseling session. So we're going to have a discussion now about 3 questions, important questions, about values and in the counseling session. And I've asked 3 of our peer counseling trainers today to talk to us about that. First thing I'd like to know what you all think is when you're in a counseling session and you begin to notice that the value that you hold, whatever value that might be, is either in conflict with your counselee's value or that your value is in such agreement with the counselee's value that you can't get any work done. And how do you know that that's going on? How do you know, let's take the first one, how do you know when your value is in conflict with your counselee's value?
I think one way is that you get angry or frustrated with the other person. You want that person to think a certain way or act a certain way or be a certain way. And when that person doesn't do what you think he ought to be doing, you can be pretty sure that your values are involved somewhat.
And that part I'd like to pick up on, the person not doing what you want them to do, and you're feeling a sense of disappointment and frustration, like David said, in the person, in that they're not being all that they could be from your perspective. I think that's another clue.
You also begin not to like certain aspects of that person. I remember a number of times I've left an interview with a client, and for some reason it was very disappointing with them, or wasn't really looking forward to the next time because of something that happened during the session triggered something off in me. And it's something that I'm very aware of. Not always during the session, but especially after.
Another thing that you may feel, the peer counselor may feel, is a sense of urgency, a real strong need to do something real quick because the kid they're working with doesn't have the same value they have. If, for example, around school, if the kid has a value that says school's not real important, and the peer counselor has a value that says school is important, the peer counselor may feel a real need to impart or give that value quickly to the kid so that the kid can be a, quote, success.
And quickly, so they don't lose this quarter marking grades or whatever.
So I'm hearing you say that there is a sense of anger, a sense of frustration, a sense of disappointment, and even a sense of urgency. There are beginning signals, these are internal feelings that you're having, a beginning signal to you that perhaps there's some conflict of value going on. But I'm wondering if you can help us just narrow it down a little bit more so you can distinguish between you're just angry that this person is not doing what you want them to do when that your value is in conflict with their value. Is there any way that you go about checking that out?
I think one way, I'm not sure if this is responding to your question, but one way is when I start giving advice. I'm usually giving advice because of something the person has said, and I feel a need to, I guess, kind of push my values on that person by saying, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. So It's one of the things that come to my mind when I start giving advice.
When you start giving advice and you begin to use the words should and ought to and must,
Or ought to think about.
ought to think
Right.
about. Okay. That's a good clue.
When I think when you start to work in a way that narrows the person's options, when you start to say, well, the best way, the shoulds and oughts, the way to go in this direction is this way, and you give them only one option, when you're narrowing their options, that prevents them from having options.
Or even take it one step further, when you frame options in such a way that it's also very easy to sort of say, well, you have two choices. You can either go to school and be a bum, you can either not go to school and be a bum, or you can go to school and be happy and successful. And even when you're framing options, that you can frame them in such a way that it gives a very clear idea to the client.
And that sounds real parental. So that when you start to be parental, when you start to sound like the kid's mom and dad, or a teacher, then maybe you have taken a stand on a certain value. I guess partly I heard that question as when you're upset with someone or angry with a counselee that you're working with, and some of that is because they're clashing with your values, probably all the time. And then it's important to know what value it is that they're clashing with, and that then you can work with.
So when you begin to get what we call parental, when you start acting like someone's mom or dad or a teacher, you begin to give advice, or that you begin to say that there's only one alternative in the situation, is another way that you can begin to be aware that you're probably operating from your personal value, which is in conflict with your counselee's value. And I think that those are things that when you find yourself doing that, you can begin to be aware, aha, yes, this is a value conflict here. But another thing occurs in the counseling situation is when you and the counselee have very similar values, and that they are so similar that you fail to help the counselee. Do you understand what I'm mentioning? Like,
sure.
I can't think of an example. Maybe you can give some examples where that happens.
I think it comes, for me, sometimes when I have a value, let's say we're talking about school, that I think school is very important. I have one client who also thinks school is very, very important. In fact, he's compulsive about school. And he's compulsive about everything in his life. And when he talks about school, it's very important to him. But in fact, it's so important that he doesn't have any other kind of life. He's too worried about whether he's going to be successful or unsuccessful. And sometimes I find myself not being able to help him.
I think for a peer counselor, what a peer counselor might find is if you have a peer counselor whose value and lifestyle is to be very mature, and they would get a client who was being that way too, being very mature, perhaps acting older than they should, that they might not support the need for that person to also be a kid. That teenager needs to also try out a bunch of different hats. That's an important part of their own development, part of their developmental tasks. And if they're only trying out the hat of old person, and that's a hat that the peer counselor wears, they might not encourage them to explore other options. And I would think that would be that's the values meshing together to prevent.
Well, you bring it back to an interesting point, which is that if the person doesn't perceive that their behavior causes them personally any problems, you can't influence their value, nor can you change their behavior. When the counselor comes to you and says, I'm unhappy, I don't have any friends in school, okay? And that is a problem for them. And you find out one of their values is a very strongly held religious belief. And the behavior that is a result of that value is proselytizing of a sort, which keeps people away from them. How would you help that child change his or her behavior without influencing the value?
I would ask the child to examine with me what happens when they're with a friend. Just step by step. Here comes your friend Mary, for example. What do you say to her? Well, I start to talk to her about how great it is to be this religion. And then what does Mary do? She doesn't sit with me, she goes and sits with somebody else. Oh, what do you think about that? Well, you know, she doesn't want to be saved, and and she's a fool for not wanting to be saved. That may be true, but did you keep your friend with you? No, I didn't. Well, what's some ways you can keep your friends with you? What are the consequences of you proselytizing? What are the consequences of you always trying to get everybody to believe in your religion? And are you being effective?
Yeah, I think that's important, because then you're putting it in her value terms.
Mm-hmm.
She walked away from you, so she didn't convert, did she?
You didn't save her.
Nor did she become your friend, which is a behavior that's...
So you lost on both counts. You lost on both counts.
So is there a way that you can be her friend and convert her to your religion? Can you find more effective techniques to accomplish your goals?
I think, real simple. It's just teaching people the difference between being effective and being right. You know, you can be right about the fact that school doesn't teach you anything. Or you can, you know, and you won't get a diploma because you're so right.
Been hearing you all say that a very effective way for helping people change their behaviors without influencing their values is to focus on the consequences of their behaviors rather than to engage in an argument about what they believe in. And I'm wondering, is there anything else that you have found is helpful to do in the counseling situation when you are feeling your value is in conflict with the other's value? Oh, and Carrie, you had also mentioned that sometimes you just tell them anyways. Like take a bath.